We have just rolled the calendar, and it is January of the year 2021. It's that time of year for New Year's resolutions. And every year, near the top of the list, I always hear people talk about new jobs and new careers. So I wanted to find some resources to help those that are looking at making a change in the coming year or years. Now, this is a topic that really is not industry specific and is universal across most, if not all, industries. So if you or someone you know is or will be looking at making a career change, then this information is for you. On this show, we talk a lot about the individual and how to best prepare themselves to put their best foot forward and to truly market themselves, to go out into the job field and to acquire and obtain that new career that they are looking for. As together, we are building the future. This is the Building the Future podcast. I am your host, the lumberjack, Brett Thorne. On this show, we explore topics including construction, building materials, real estate, remodeling, the housing market, industry news, new products and trends, technology, government, everything you need for building the future. Welcome back to the Building the Future podcast. I am your host, Brett Thorne, and this is going to be the second episode of 2021. And what I wanted to do for this episode is I wanted to dive into a topic that is a very popular topic this time of year. And what I came across was an article called the Talent Marketing Guide. And with me tonight is the author of this guide from Legacy Search. I'd like to welcome Mr. James Aiken. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me, Brett. I appreciate the warm welcome in the intro. Like you said, I run Legacy Search, a recruiting firm in the building materials industry. And I'm excited to share some of the kind of candidate marketing tips here.
Great. And before we dive into that, James, let's get a little foundation for who you are and how you kind of got into the role and to your company.
Okay, so big question. I'll give you a quick answer. So graduated from USC, South Carolina in 2013. Soon after, I got recruited to a local recruiting agency. Didn't know recruiting was a thing, was amazed that it was a thing. I was down at a local manufacturing shop. Every week we were doing hiring machinists and maintenance techs and assembly workers. And I fell in love with the industry, found out that I was always interested in entrepreneurship. And I found out, hey, this is one of those businesses that, you can start up, and it's not so tough, not very expensive. I don't need $100,000 to start this thing. And so it caught my attention. I moved from that firm to a more professional, or a more, a standard agency type model. The first company was a bit different, where in this new company, we're running a full desk, which means you're selling and recruiting. Spent some time there and ended up rolling out of that into starting my own brand, Legacy Search, about 4 or 5 years ago. And we kind of pigeonholed ourselves in building materials because I really liked the market. My degree's in real estate development, and I wanted to learn. It was kind of getting two things for one, right? Because I was able to learn more about how the supply chain works and learn more about the products, the inventory, the process of a build. And network myself a little bit more in the industry, learn more about who the big players are, and ultimately help them with their sales and operations teams.
Okay, so you've got a lot of years of experience in the industry and even more years in recruiting. So one of the things that your talent marketing guide is about career changes. So I want to first start off with that. Why do people make career changes? What are the most beneficial things and what are the drivers behind it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons, right? We could start with the not so good reasons. You've got a bad boss, working with people you don't like, you don't feel appreciated, you feel underutilized, maybe you feel like, well, like we talked about earlier, your role's monotonous, you're not getting to do anything exciting, you don't feel any personal development, any career development, you don't know what's going on a day-to-day basis, you feel negative, and you want out because nobody likes the negativity, right? And on the other side, if there's a lot of people that are out there that are working, they're not going to come off the ball every single day for their current employers. They're making their boss happy. The boss is making them happy, but they still have long-term career goals. And so whenever I talk to them, one of the questions we always want to go over is, okay, if you could change anything about your current role or environment, what would you change? And so you can be perfectly happy in your current job, but if you're thinking long term and you're like, man, I've been a sales guy for 5 years, 10 years, and I want to be in sales management. Well, that's a good reason to change jobs if somebody wants to come to you and say, hey, I can make you a manager over here. Same with, some people, maybe it's a lifestyle thing. I know a lot of people get sick and tired of traveling overnight over and over and over. And maybe they want to work a smaller territory where they can, be home with the wife and kids more often. There's a zillion different reasons on why somebody would change. I think ultimately they all fall under one of two things: they either career or lifestyle. They want one or the other, or they're moving in one direction or the other.
So, what are some of the downsides, or maybe some of the threats that people need to be aware of when making career changes?
One of the biggest threats is going too fast. You're in a job, like I mentioned, with you're in a negative environment. A lot of people get into a situation where they start looking for a new job, and the first thing that they get on their plate, they just take because they're like, oh man, my current job stinks so much. I just want to get out. And that's probably the worst thing that you can do.
So your drive to change is so strong that you jump at the first thing you can jump at. You don't really take the time to analyze it and do the research and homework to make sure it is a better change or a better position.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole thing is like, and same thing happens to people whenever they, if they go through a layoff or if they're unemployed, a lot of times it's like that first job, they get an offer and they just accept just because, hey, it's something on the table. But if you're going to be upset and unhappy with your life 3, 6, 12 months down the line, then maybe you have to take a little bit more pain on the front to, get yourself set in the right trajectory long term.
What's some of the biggest sticking factors for reasons why people do not make that change when they want to?
They are, it's a, I guess you would say, I'm trying to think of the right words to use here, but I would say fear of instability is a big one because a lot of businesses, when they saw all kinds of layoffs, they were like, oh man, there must be so much talent out there. It must be so easy to hire people. Well, what happened was they cut their worst people. Not every situation, but you understand. They cut certain people, and then the best people they hold on to tighter. And those same people that are the best in their current companies, they're hearing, oh man, in macroeconomic, it's everything's getting blown up, everything's unstable, everything's crazy, and so they don't make a change because they're worried about, hey, what if it doesn't work out and I'm, on my butt in the end? What if this opportunity? What if this company is selling me an opportunity that's not really what it is? A bird in the hand's worth two in the bush, right? And so I think that's one of the big reasons why people don't make a change is they feel stable in their current role, and either the pain's not high enough or the pleasure from the external opportunity isn't high enough to cancel out the nervousness or the feeling of risk that they have there. I would say that that's one of the big reasons.
Yeah, and let's face it, change for the sake of change is not a popular model.
Right.
Now, one of the stats I saw in your guide that really caught my attention was you said, and I'm going to let you go ahead and correct these because I'm sure I'm going to butcher them or I'm not going to word them properly. But I think you said that on average, a typical raise in a current role is around 3% per year. But a typical earnings increase for changing either roles or companies is going to be more like 10 to 20%. Give me the feedback on that and make the corrections of where I butchered
Well, no, I mean,
it.
hey, I don't have the almanac right in front of me, so I can't give you the exact rates, but I do know that that is the standard, 3 to 5% annual or raise. This cost of living raise that you get internally if you're not changing your job. Unless you're changing function and responsibilities in a big way, you're probably not going to see too big of a raise internally. And a lot of times these raises end up being, in the sales function, the raises end up being on base, and you end up trimming some on bonus or maybe on commission. And so in a lot of ways, it might be a wash, or maybe you're taking on more. You're making more, but you're taking on more of the risk in the process. A lot of different ways you can measure all those things. But externally, yeah, if you're making a change, if you have somebody that's pursuing you actively, and you're going from 50 to 55, or 70 to 82 or 84, that's a actual realistic move for people, because these companies naturally want to hire somebody. That's what they're trying to achieve. And so they're going to bid a little bit higher for somebody to acquire them fresh versus to retain. And that's something we talked about, a little bit earlier in the day. It's people fight more to get that initial hire than a lot of companies will fight to retain. And so that's why the promotion, or your increase in compensation, is a lot higher externally. And you have multiple bidders, right? If it's internal, the only person bidding there is your company. You can have 4 different companies bidding on you if you're going external. I mean, you can go on as many interviews as you'd like. I mean, you can create a competitive environment where people are trying to outbid each other. I mean, you can't really do that with your internal company. You can't pit different divisions. Maybe you could pit different divisions inside your company if you're that good, but that's not really quite as realistic.
So now to dive into your talent marketing guide, let's start off. Let's start at a very high level. Let's give the basics. What is it exactly and who's it for?
Okay, what is it? So it's essentially just a blueprint. It's a layout or a process for any professional to effectively market themselves. Like, if you want to find a new job, you just walk through these exact steps. It can help you get your talents in front of more people and get them in front of the right people, ultimately help you get more interviews and better job offers. Um, and what was the other half there? You said, what is it?
And who's it for?
For everybody that's got a W-2 or a 1099, my man. It's anybody that's working. Anybody that's working. If you don't have any talents, you don't have any skills, it'll be a little bit tougher to get it to work for you. It'll work for you. If it's your first job, it'll work for you. But it works best if we have a target audience. We go through that in the guide there. You want to. It's better if you're able to narrow in on people that would benefit from having you on their team. Getting your skills in front of people that need those skills. If you have no skills, it's gonna be tough. But if you do, then you follow the process and get in front of the right people and get some conversations started.
So, would that encompass also what talent marketing is? Or is that kind of, is there a better definition for just, I understand, yes, this is the blueprint, this is the guide, but what truly is the definition of talent marketing?
In the what do you call it? The Aiken dictionary, I guess. In the
I
Aiken
mean, it's right there by Webster's, I'm sure.
dictionary.
It's on the same. I mean, when you go to Barnes and Noble, it's on the same
Somewhere.
row.
Yeah. I mean, I would say talent marketing is literally just, for a concept in my mind, it's taking somebody and showing them how to effectively network, how to show. I know this is going to sound corny. I've had this song stuck in my head all day, and I wanted to tie it in here. It's, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, right? You've heard this. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And that's what we want professionals to be able to do. We want companies to see you, to see what you're achieving, and to ultimately, try to promote you, try to poach you, basically. You want these companies to understand how effective you are, what you do, the accomplishments you've had, because that's, what talent marketing is. It's making sure that the people that need you most know you, so they can contact you, so they can bring you onto their team and ultimately help your career. Because if you've defined what you want in your career, you're going to know who the best points of contact to talk to are, and you're going to be able to make the best offer to those kinds of people. So that's really what talent marketing is. The definition, the long definition of talent marketing.
What if I said something like selling yourself?
I mean, it basically is. Smells crude though.
Can that make it into the Aikens dictionary? But obviously quoted, and put me descriptive with me there.
Get a synonym in there. We'll put a synonym in.
All right. So now we kind of know what talent marketing is. We know at a high level what the guide is. Let's start to kind of turn back the pages and let's dive into that. What are the first steps you need to do in order to best prepare yourself to go out into the marketplace?
In my mind, first thing you do, you want to make your marketing materials, right? So you want to, like, whenever I think I write about the candidate packet, that's the first thing you would want to do. And that comes down to 4 pieces there. Cover letter, okay? Cover letters should always be written 1-to-1, in my opinion. You don't necessarily have to do them for any kind of digital applications, but if you're sitting down face-to-face with somebody, maybe we can make the argument on a Zoom call. You could do it as well. But I like to limit it to, face-to-face or second round interviews. It should be written explicitly for that opportunity on why you're going to add so much value to their, process, to their team, or on that function. Next, boom, you flip over the page. You've got your resume, 1-page resume. Very controversial. They say, oh, you don't need a 1-page, 2-page, 3-page, whatever's fine. I'm just going to tell you, I'm not going to do much convincing on my argument here. I'm just going to say, look, you want to make sure it's as easy as possible for the reader to take home the most important pieces of information. So I say on your resume, change your responsibilities to accomplishments. Basically, instead of saying I managed a team of 10 salespeople, you should say I inherited a team of 5 salespeople and grew it to a team of 10 and increased their closing rate by 10% or whatever. I'm just pulling that out of thin air. But what we need to do is make sure that everything's understood. All the big chunks are understood. We don't want them to get lost in the minutia. We want them to read as much of the resume as possible, right? We want them to take away a lot of the great information, the things that you've done in your career that have made you successful. We don't want them to, be paying attention to minor things and unimportant information because, like I say, the resume, the call to action, if you think from a marketing perspective, the call to action on a resume is to get them to contact you. So the element of curiosity is very important there. If you can show that you've, moved these 4 big boulders, when you've done these big things, then they're going to want to ask more about that. And then they're, going to give you a call, send you an email, whatever it may be.
So on the resume, then, could you, especially if you have a list of accomplishments that, and obviously I agree with you 100%, keep it simple, let's look at the big pieces here. Do you try to cater that maybe to the position? So if it's different roles, you try to pick accomplishments that would align with what it is that those things are, or do you just try to put your best foot forward and say, these are my best accomplishments regardless of what I'm going after?
And that's a really good point to bring up because it reminds me we didn't even start early enough, right? Because we didn't define what job we're going after or what our goal is, right? And so that's really that's what kind of crosses over with that is if you know that you're going after a sales role and you want to sell with a dealer, then yeah, everything should be written in that degree and you should be, only going after a situation like that. You want to make all of your candidate info as specific as possible to that role. And the best way to do that is by actually making a close target. A lot of people just say, oh, well, I want a sales job. I want whatever. Doesn't matter to me. Well, it's very hard to actually move the needle forward when we don't have a clear target. So I always tell people, hey, even if you aren't segmenting yourself to this one thing, well, why don't we just take out this segment first? Why don't we do this a piece at a time and change it up that way and say, okay, well, let's do the dealers. Okay, let's do the manufacturers. Okay, let's do, installers or whatever it may be. Chop it up different based on who you're going after or who your target audience is.
Okay, so these pieces, your cover letter, your resume, they're fluid. They're going to be changed as you are And obviously you want to be very defined in your target, what it is you're looking for, but maybe you're going to tweak those as you are looking at different companies based on what it is there, or you're trying to align the best as you can with them.
Right. The resume should be it's going to be a little bit more general than your cover letter because the
Mm-hmm.
cover letter should be 1-to-1. But the resume is written for that general role. I
Okay.
want to work for a dealer. I want to work for a manufacturer, whatever it is. Or I keep it in the building materials nomenclature, but you understand what I mean. Like we zoom in. We got to zoom in. We have to have a target, especially if you're talking to leaders in that market. We want them to know that that's exactly what you're going after. So yeah, I mean that's kind of the 1-2 punch front end. Then we have the achievements index, and so this is something that I kind of threw in as a extra piece because there's a lot of executives and people that have been have long career tenures, or maybe they've worked on a lot of different projects or had a lot of different accomplishments. What I suggest doing, instead of having this 2-3 page resume, you have everything succinct on the resume, and if you want, add another page called the achievements index, and then that's where you go into detail on certain accomplishments that you've had. So I said, hey, we inherited a team of 5, grew it to a team of 10, increased closing rates by 10%. Okay, well, how'd you do that? Well, look on the achievements page. We'll break it down right here. Start off 2013 and did this and this and this, whatever it may be. But you basically write everything out in a couple sentences and give your pitch or your insight as if they were asking you on the phone, about that accomplishment. And you kind of go through that on a couple of different achievements that you've had. And then the very last page, wrap it all up, is a pre-written reference. You say, go ahead and get a pre-written reference from a previous manager is always the best person to have one from. If you can't, and you're in sales, maybe a customer reference. If you're not in sales, maybe a coworker reference. Whatever it may be, maybe someone that used to work with you. You need to, instead of saying, oh, well, inquire for references, or you list some people and their numbers at the bottom of the resume, go ahead and take all that grunt work out of the HR managers or out of the recruiter's hands and just give them the pre-written reference. Go ahead and ask the person for a reference, attach it with all the stuff, and then they know, okay, one, you're getting the validity and you're getting the social proof behind the reference, but then you're also showing them, hey, I actually prepared pretty well, right? Because I've got all this extra info for you. I've got everything knocked out. And if you want to verify what is said on this reference, here's his number. And you just want to make it as easy as possible for them to make the right decision, which is hiring you, right? So we want
to make it easy to say yes, James.
Yeah, exactly. You just want to.
Why say no when yes feels so good?
Right. Exactly. So, and then that's the candidate packet. You just boom, put it all together, boom, staple it, put it in a little folder, whatever you'd like to do. But it looks a lot different whenever you come down and you're setting that down versus somebody that's bringing, a single page resume or a 5-page resume or whatever. You look put together.
Okay. So we kind of, you backtrack there just a little bit. We said, first off, we're going to define what it is we're looking for, define our role that we're looking for, define our position, define what it is we want in the career change.
Yeah.
And then we said, you really need to start by, once you have that definition, once you have that target in mind, then you start by putting together your candidate packet.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do next, James?
All right.
Let's keep rolling, baby. This is good stuff. Don't you hold back on us now.
So next, all right, we've got our vision, we've got our marketing material, we've got our slings and arrows, and we got our armor. And now it's all about, okay, getting in front of the right people, right? And so it's going to be a lot easier whenever you have this specific target. Like, for example, let's say it's a roofing products dealer, and you're in Atlanta. Naturally, you're going to want to figure out who are all the roofing product dealers in, a 5, 10, whatever mile radius, and then start figuring out, okay, well, who's the sales manager or the sales leader at that branch, or who's the general manager or the branch manager. And then we're starting to kind of fill out their contact information there. You can find it online from a multitude of different places, or you can just send them a little message on LinkedIn, or do it however you like. But you can always get their contact info. And we're basically building out a list on your targets there. Get a couple handfuls of them. A 10 would be a very small start. Getting 30 to 50 is ideal. Obviously, they're not going to fall into that one specific product category and that one specific distribution method, but we can also look at general distributors. We can look at different products because a lot of times these companies aren't necessarily looking for product experts, manufacturers maybe, but they're looking more so for customer experts. They're looking for people that understand how contractors and builders buy. They want people that maybe already have a network, an inherent network there. There's a lot of things that cross over very well depending on the different products and depending on who they're selling to. And so yeah, it's all about building that list, and then the next step is reaching out. Right, is actually emailing them, calling them, messaging them on LinkedIn, and tracking that whole process and making sure that you're not kind of leaving somebody in the cold. They always say, well, what is the sales thing? They're like, oh, the 90% of sales are made after the 8th call or something like that. I'm not sure if that's really true, but there's still one thing I do believe is true is the fortunes and the follow-up, right? These people are busy. Got to make sure that if you want to push your life in a certain direction, you can't always sit on your hands and just hope that somebody gets back to you, because they've got a zillion different things coming up or happening in their life. You want to give them an easy opportunity to respond. And so that's why I say whenever you're reaching out to these people, you want to make sure to lead with either a problem that you can solve or a reason why joining their firm would ultimately help them in their career or help their team or help their company. And so that's why I say, okay, well, if we're targeting down on dealers, then I can say, hey, well, I've got a strong network of local spec builders in the area, or I guess nationwide spec builders in the area. And, I've been selling to them for this long, and I did this much, last year, and kind of give them the rundown on, okay, hey, I like basically show them the shiny object, right? Show them the things that, you did well, and explain to them what you're looking for. And I would warn people, make this as short as possible, as very short as possible, like 2 sentences, 3 sentences, because if somebody gets an email, they don't know the name, they don't know who's emailing them, they probably don't know what it's about. They look at the email and boom, it's this huge wall of text, and now they've got a chore on their hands. And not only do they have a chore on their hands, but then they know you're going to follow up with, and they know it might not go away, And so it's like you want to, again, make it as easy as possible for them to say yes. Make it easy for them to, your first contact is really just to get them to be responsive. Then once they're responsive, then you're trying to get them on the phone or to have a deeper conversation with them in some way on whether or not they have a need or know somebody that does have a need. And then we kind of go from there. And even if they don't have a need and they don't know anybody that has a need, well, you still want to track everything, because who knows, things change in a month, things change in 2 months. Either way, you're going to want to know the leaders in your local market. If you're considering a long-term career in the industry, you're going to want to know these people, regardless of whether or not they have an opportunity right now. Like if I was a real estate agent in town, there's no reason why I shouldn't know every broker in town, right? Because if I'm killing it and somebody wants to make me an offer to, make more money somewhere else, obviously I'm going to take it no matter where I am. But well, there's a lot of different things here, but chances are it's going to take it. They're going to change. But if nobody knows you, if nobody knows to reach out to you, if nobody knows your talents, then who is going to reach out to you? So that's the whole point, is build that professional network in order to have the people that need you most know to call you or have the opportunity to call you and to bring you in and talk with you about opportunities with their business.
Okay. So I'm taking notes over here. So I'm going to subtitle that step as the researching, networking, and promoting step. Is that fair?
It's fair enough.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's keep rolling. What's next?
What's next? Oh boy. So now once we get, let's say we go from the initial conversation, now we're interviewing. Okay. We've got the candidate packet. We're doing all of that. We're making sure that we're presenting well. We're being respectful. We're dressing nice, trying to dress maybe a little bit above the hiring manager's dress. Honestly, this is like the easiest stage because if you've done all the work on the front end, all your conversations are really setting you up kind of like to t-ball it in whenever you get to the interview. Because if you're matching on what you've done and what they're looking for somebody to do on a specific role, and they're bringing you in, it's almost like a formality at that point. Whenever you front loaded all that information, when you've told somebody your goals and what you've done, and they cross over very well with that new opportunity, then it's kind of just okay. Well, we're meeting for an official interview to feel everything out. Maybe we have a couple of different points of contact internally that need to sign off or whatever it may be. But I think that at that point, you already know what your value propositions are. You already know what you're looking for, which you need to be very clear with the hiring managers on that. And it's just a matter of at that point, you should really just be looking at the interviews as a not a sales process, but more of a just a fact finding situation. You should be qualifying the job opportunity just as much as they're trying to qualify you. Because in this case, if you have a lot of metrics, if you're pushing outwards, if you're emailing and calling a lot of these people and getting a lot of interviews, you're going to be put in a position where you can choose from a couple of different offers, possibly if you're getting it to the right people. And so when you're doing that, you just have to you feel a lot more in power, really, because you have choice. You're turning things down. Maybe you're turning interviews down because you reached out to one company and you said, "Hey, I want to sell to contractors," and they're like, "Well, I've actually got a an opportunity to sell to homeowners." And whereas if you didn't have any other interviews, maybe you would take the interview. But if you've got all this other activity going on, you say, no, I'm interviewing for a couple other jobs that are selling to contractors, and that's just kind of what I'm doing. And so it helps you feel better throughout your process, because a lot of people will get into a situation where, like, hey, you're applying online for different jobs, you're not hearing back, you're hardly getting any interviews. You go on an interview and you have one itis and you feel like, oh, I need this job, because you don't have any other opportunities, you don't have anything else going on. And so that's why it's better to have these high metrics, have high activity, because then you can take the time to properly filter and properly screen, and make sure that you go to the right place.
So in that step, that is where we're really, that's where our face to face is. So that's where you're going through interviews. That's where your reassurance is for basically what we've already done, all the groundwork you've done. You've done your data, you've done your homework. You know what it is they're looking for. You know what it is that you have to offer. This is where you're really beginning to find out more. You can really start to pick apart what it is that they have, what it is
Exactly.
they are bringing to the table. So then you can now make the best decision for your future.
Right. You front loaded all the qualification, all the qualifying that they were going to do to you. You go ahead and front load it before you even have the interview. You already show them that you're the real deal. So that way, whenever you go into the interview, you're qualifying them. You're figuring out, okay, who all's on the team? Can I meet people on the team? What's the top biller doing? What's this? What's happening here? What's happening here? You should be in a position where, the lion's share of the conversation should be coming from you. I mean, you should be flipping things and trying to find out more about this business, about where they want to go long term, how they want to develop. Is there a line of succession? That's when your fact finding comes in. Is whenever you get to the real interviews.
So in a sense, you're more interviewing them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of where you want to be, because if you instead get that, if you pique the interest early and kind of prove yourself as a professional and prove yourself as a valuable person that they want to hire in the very beginning, yeah, you're going to have a lot more time to be able to qualify them. Because if you haven't done over all that stuff, then that means the first interview is going to be, all right, well, where'd you work? Tell me, walk through your resume for me, and do this. And it's like, well, all that could have been covered a week or two ago when we first got introduced. I don't want to spend this face to face. Well, I'm not saying you should say this, but you don't necessarily want to spend this face to face time just going over the simple stuff. Okay, it's time for you to start digging into them a little bit more and learning a little bit more about them and qualifying them. Because if you're interviewing at a lot of different places, that's really what's going to help you make the decision, is the information you have about each opportunity and company.
Excellent. What else do we need to know, James? Where do we go from here?
Where we go from here, I guess we would say never accept the counteroffer. We always say that, right? Uh, Most of the time, people end up leaving the company anyway after less than a year. We say don't feel bad for pitting employers against each other. Obviously, don't do it in a way that is unethical or that you shouldn't be lying or doing anything nasty. But if multiple companies want to hire you, be transparent. Hey, I got an offer at this level from this company. I'm thinking about taking it. I know you guys were, I was in process, but just letting you guys know because they were first to the punch, and this is where they got me at. So if you want to give it a shot, hopefully it'll be bigger than this number, right? And so that's kind of where you get in with that. Outside of that, you say yes to the offer you like, and then you start onboarding.
Sign on the dotted line, James.
Yeah, you just get assigned out. You do your W-9. It's easy stuff. Get your 401k going.
Perfect. So what you've got here, I mean, you really have the playbook. Like you said, it's a blueprint for anybody that is looking at making a career change. So if listeners out there want to go into this a little more deeper, want to read through it themselves, want hands-on with this, how do they get this information?
Yeah, just go to it should be on legacysearch.net under the candidates section, but you can also go to candidatemarketingtips.com. There's an opt-in right there on the front page. It's a one-page website. You sign in there, it'll send it over to you, and then you can enjoy it at your leisure.
Perfect. And I'm going to put all this in the show notes. But if people want to further get in touch with you, whether it be a candidate or a company, how do people get in touch with you or Legacy Search?
So easiest way would be through our website, legacysearch.net. I'm also on LinkedIn. Type in little James Aiken, boom, I'll show up. Twitter @LegacyGVL, or just James at legacysearch.net. We'll keep it old school, just straight email. We can do that. Phone number, that's a little bit more secretive. We'll let that we'll put a filter on that one.
You gotta get past the first 4 steps before you get that, huh?
That's right.
Excellent.
That's
James,
right.
this is great information. I think you got a lot of value here that can really help people out. Before I let you go, I want to be respectful of your time. You have any closing thoughts for the listeners?
Basically, what I want people to understand is like you can create any kind of life you want. It all takes just taking those certain steps. Like I was telling a story to someone the other day about whenever I first graduated. I'll keep it pretty short. When I first graduated, wanted to be in real estate, didn't want to do residential real estate, wasn't really interested in it, wanted to do commercial. There's two big, or at the time for me, in my mind, there were 2 or 3 big commercial developers in Greenville. I wanted to know both of them. Now, their names are big in the area, and they're older fellas, secretive. They're and on the move, and very important people. And I got into a situation where I emailed, got nothing. Emailed the secretary, got nothing. Went up to the office. Secretary told me I'll pass the note to him. Yeah, for sure. And then I see her crumple it up and throw it in a trash can. Well, I didn't really see that, but that's how. And until eventually I was just like, what, screw this. I'm not gonna, I want to meet this guy. I can't, there's no other, I just wanted to meet him. And so when I did, I woke up, it was like 5 or 6 a.m. I went down to the office. He was in one of the buildings downtown, and he was at the top of one of these hotels. And I basically just sat at the bottom by the elevator because I knew he had to take the elevator up. And so I woke up early, went out there, sat there, waited on him. He actually walked in. I saw him. I thought he was about to get on the elevator. He walked right past me, went to the hotel lobby, sat down, had a meeting. So I'm like creeping over like behind the bushes, just waiting till the meeting's over. And he gets up, boom! I like immediately intercept him, and I give him my pitch and all this, and he ends up, luckily at that point, he's like, okay, this guy's serious. I better get rid of him. So he's like, all right, yeah, we'll go. We'll have a meeting up in my office or whatever. And we actually did. And we went over some things. It was very nice. But I always tell people or the person I was telling before, he was like, man, that's amazing that, you would have the, I don't know, the not strength, but like just doing that, just that step. A lot of people, he said, a lot of people wouldn't do that. Honestly, everybody can do that. Nobody is, not able. I didn't do anything special. I didn't have any secret sauce. It's all about just figuring out how bad do you want it? How bad do you want that step? Do you want to develop your career? Well, do you want it bad enough where you'll reach out to 5 executives a day for, the next month and not even expecting anything, but just making it a process where you're bam, 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 making sure that you're reaching out to very important people that can make a huge difference in your career? Like, you can create the life that you want. You just have to take the steps. You can't sit in the side in the passenger seat and hope that someone else gives you an opportunity. You have to make the opportunities for yourself. And it's not as hard as people make it seem. These aren't like crazy things that we're doing. We're not climbing Mount Everest. We're not going to Mars. We're just reaching. We're just calling certain people. We're sending emails to certain people. This is very simple stuff. So don't be fearful. Don't think that it's a much bigger boulder or a much bigger task than it actually is, because it's not. Chop it up. Well, it's like one of my favorite sayings. What's the best way to eat an elephant? They say a bite at a time. And that's what we have to do. It's you have to chop this giant boulder up. If you think it's this huge thing, okay, we'll chop it up into, what do I need to do today? What do I need to do this week to get this done? And think about it that way. Fall in love with the process, and review the outcome on a longer term scale than you're reviewing the process and staying consistent with the process. Long anecdote, long final words, but I just wanted everybody to think, because some people hears or sees this stuff and they're like, yeah, but that sounds like a lot of work. And I'm like, well, if you can make 10 grand more by doing this, or 20 grand more, I mean, is it worth it to you? Is it worth it to you? If you could go from a situation where you're traveling 80% of the time, and you can not travel at all or do 20%, is it worth it to you? Is it worth it to you to see your wife and kids? Is it worth it? Like, that's the whole thing. And in a lot of cases, yeah, hell yeah, it's worth it. But people kind of talk themselves out of it and think that something's going to come along. I'll apply to a job online, and something will just happen. You have to make things happen. That's the only way to really get what you want. I mean, you have to make things happen. So that's my last tidbit.
No, it's all good stuff, James. What you shared with us here and what you've shared in the Talent Marketing Guide are all things that will make a difference in people's career. James, I want to thank you again for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Brett.
This is the Building the Future podcast. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Please like and share. You can find out more at our website, www.buildingthefuturepodcast.com. Together we are building the future.